Welcome to Plus or Minus, the Horological Debate Show about the best and worst of the watch industry. I'm Thomas Hendricks.
I'm Balazs Ferenczi.
Thanks for coming all the way to New York just to lose.
Just for you.
Yeah?
Just for this.
Just for me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
You want to start us off with question numero uno?
Yes. Best decade for watch design.
I'm going to go 1970s. A couple icons. You got the integrated bracelet, sports stuff. You have, the Rolex and the Nautilus, I believe, was also 1970s.
Yeah.
You have the...
Which year?
Nautilus.
76 and AP, I think 72.
72, yeah. You also have all the funky space age stuff that I think was really cool. So moon landing was 69, and then you get all the watches that were inspired out of that. You can just look at them and tell that they were from the 1970s, which I really like. You have a lot of really sculptural, experimental kind of stuff coming from Patek, and also all of the real hallmark kind of 1969 models. Those matured more into the 70s as well. It's kind of 2 decades in one, I would say.
Yeah, you also have a lot of industrial designers moving to watches, like Roger Talon, doing the lip, the Mach 2000 with the funky colored.
Lip is a great example of funky 70s kind of stuff.
So I totally agree. I also think that the 60s is also interesting because that was the last decade of classy, elegant watchmaking. Because as you said afterwards, it just became boom, big, gold-plated, steel, whatever.
Well, a lot of the major market players today, were born in the 60s.
And now that a lot of them are doing re-editions of the 60s. So that design is kind of working again. When they're doing 70s stuff as well. But probably mid to late 60s, if you think about the chronographs and, the dial layouts.
So you had all the, 1969 chronographs, like the El Primero was 69.
Yeah, exactly. The Caliber 11.
Yeah, the Caliber 11, so you had the Monaco, of
Monaco's, Breitlings. But I think the 60s, with the 2 sub-dial, 3 sub-dial chronographs, Walser 72s and all that stuff, there's a lot of classy stuff that people still use or brands still use today. Maybe not the whole thing, but maybe the case shape or something from the dial.
Decade for the Speedmaster as well.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, 57 Speedmaster came to the market, but actually, I think the Speedmaster, as we know it today, it's from the 60s.
Came into its own, and that's what you see. That's why I chose the 70s, because there's a lot of late 60s stuff that took a little while to bloom. Let's say.
Yeah.
I would go 70s. You're going 60s.
I would go 60s, yeah. Okay. But I agree, 70s also cool.
Okay, we'll get this one out of here, and then question for you: best dress watch. Not necessarily your area of expertise or interest, I would say, but there's also a few core models to choose from.
I always say that if I had to just have a 3 watch collection, just buy, those 3 pieces, I'd have a sub, I'd have a Speedmaster, and I'd have a Calatrava.
Okay.
And I don't really need to pick any reference. I think what the brand represents and what the model represents, those things are enough for me to say, when it comes to dress watches or, elegant watches, there's a lot, right? There's Cartier, there's the Reverso, there's so many. But I think if money is not an issue, that's a Calatrava. Maybe even a vintage Calatrava. Yeah. But then it gets maybe too small, and then my wrist is kind of big, so...
I don't like a big Calatrava.
No, but the new ones are also not my thing. But something maybe from the 90s or 80s,
Okay.
Like a neo-vintage Calatrava. I think that's...
Yeah, and that's pretty overlooked as well. So it's realistically pricing-wise, it's that's a good...
Yeah, it's
time slot to
as classy as it gets.
I think you have Calatrava, definitely. That was one that came to mind for me. I love the Reference 96. I love the 25-26. I think are probably my top 2, but there's many others I'm not even thinking of right now.
Yeah.
You have the Reverso, which is an all-time classic. You get 2 watches in one a lot of times. You can play with it as well. I think that's a really cool part. But I would
different shape also.
I would go the other one that you mentioned, which is I think top of mind for everyone, which is the Cartier tank.
Not this one, but
it's
the same brand.
The Santos, same brand. Similar feeling as well. And you also have a lot of options within the tank. They took a square and did every kind of square you could think of. And so you can go classic, tank normal, tank Louis kind of stuff. But if I were going to do it, I would really do it. I love weirder stuff. So I would go the Obu, the one with the kind of bullet shaped lugs, or a tank chinoise, for example, or even just, Centre would be killer. Centre dual time, like we saw in the UK, would be pretty, so there's a lot, I think with dress watches, people are like, oh, it's kind of boring. It's too simple, but there are a lot of options out there with the Calatrava, with the Reverso, with the tank. You can go standard production down the middle, or you can like get a little freaky if you want to get freaky.
Absolutely. And then that's only 3 brands, and there's so many out there if you want, like Lange and all those guys.
Exactly. Yeah, Lange 1 was another watch that came up. But yeah, I think every collection needs at least one dress watch, and there are
I agree.
some pretty killer options out there.
I agree. So, worst dive watch.
There's one brand that comes immediately to mind. So I'll give you time to maybe think of a backup. Panerai has never really made any sense to me as a dive watch.
That's what they say, though.
Yeah, and that's what it was designed for.
Yeah.
But if you look at modern divers,
Questionable design, but
I mean, obviously there's no bezel, or there's no rotating bezel, so you lose that functionality, which I'm sure if you're underwater would come in handy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a diver on a leather strap, which I've never really understood.
Yeah, that's true.
They're cool looking watches. I would say that's one of the best examples of watches that took me a while to grow into. Like when I first saw Panerais, I was like, those are so big, so ugly, so like bulbous in a way. And then like with each like passing month and passing year, I've liked it a little bit more. As someone who loves like a 34 millimeter watch, could not pull it off.
It's not true.
Yeah, definitely a dinner plate on me. And I've thought about the 38 millimeter. They have a Luminor Due, but it's 30 meters of water resistance on a quote unquote diver.
I think Panerai is interesting. I like the brand. I like the shape, the original one.
Yeah,
but
the
it's also
silhouette is great.
Yeah, it's great, and it's like instantly. And it's like the Royal Oak, right? Like instantly recognizable.
Definitely. When
you see somebody, in the bus or something, it's a Panerai.
Yeah.
But I never had one. I never owned one, so I tried them on a few times and whatever. But it's really not my thing either. I think the worst dive watch, however, is the Rolex Submariner. And the reason I'm saying this is because
I'm speechless. I'm in shock.
And because a purpose of the dive watch, any dive watch, is that
keep you alive.
Well, and that you dive with it.
Yeah.
So, what do you think the percentage of subs out there in the world that is actually used for diving?
No, most people are like washing their hands with them, and that's about it.
Exactly.
Going in the pool, maybe.
So then you have a dive watch that like eagerly wants to be underwater, and you're just keeping it on your wrist in your office and in your Range Rover when you're driving. It's not supposed to be like
Fair,
that.
but is that more about the watch itself or the watch's place in society?
I leave this to the viewers to tell us in the comments.
I'm sure you'll get a few comments.
You can also say like the Speedmaster is the worst, astronaut's watch because no Speedmasters have been to space. Like most of the Speedmasters have been to space. I think it's dive watch is supposed to be, on a diver's wrist underwater and not.
You came here to start a fight, and I like that.
No.
Best Grand Seiko. You have one.
So I have a vintage one and I have a new one. Yes.
Yeah.
Best one. So I don't know if the one that I have is the best one, but I quite like that. You saw that one, I think.
The
blue one. Yeah. SBG 439, which is the cheaper version of the SBG 375, I think. Blue dial, spring drive movement, blah, blah, blah. So I like that one. I think it's pretty cool. It has drilled lug holes, convenient 40 millimeters, automatic movement. As I said, power reserve on the dial, very comfortable. I like the fact that the Grand Seiko just come in like a regular Grand Seiko box. There's like nothing, it's like very Japanese, right? You buy like Rolex too, but then there are some brands with like big box and this and that, and it's just useless once you take the watch out. What you're gonna do with it?
Yeah, it's a good first impression. In that
it's like awesome, and then okay, I'm gonna just wear the watch and what? Either that or vintage. Vintage Grand Seiko is always a good idea because it's just you look at some of the references, and I don't know anything from the top of my head. I have to say, you get so much for the price of like 6, 7, 8, 900 euros, 1,000 euros.
Oh yeah,
in quality, in craftsmanship, in movement, in precision.
And you still have the roots of the brand, the case shapes,
Absolutely.
All the what is it, like the elements in design or something.
Yeah, it's like a 44 GS case, for example. That's like pretty modern, pretty contemporary size. Yeah. So I would say probably the best Grand Seiko, aside from my Grand Seiko, is a vintage Grand Seiko.
Okay. Yeah, so that like vintage, like around 1,000, 2,000 or whatever.
Exactly, like 70s, like late 60s, early to mid 70s, 1,000, 200, 300, yeah.
Okay, back when it still had like Seiko and Grand Seiko on the dial.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna go more modern. I'm going to go... The Grand Seiko that I would consider getting if I had to get one would be the Shunbun. It's the cherry blossom dial, titanium. You get the Zaratsu polishing, which is another kind of Grand Seiko signature. Spring drive movement, little power reserve on the dial.
Yeah.
It's titanium, so it's super wearable.
Super light,
Looks very good on... I mean, the bracelet, no one ever really brags about it. A Seiko Grand Seiko bracelet.
Good bracelets.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the better ones. And it's like, let's killer on a strap on a NATO.
Yeah.
You know, you see all over Instagram, if you just looked up the reference number, people wearing it different ways, and it always looks good. And the great thing is you really get, you know, value for money. Like what a lot of people go to Grand Seiko for is those little details. So you have the cherry blossom dial that looks different in every kind of light, and sometimes a little more pink and sometimes just like a straight up silver, but the texture really shines through. So yeah, if I were to go to Grand Seiko, that would be the one I would go for.
Yeah, it's like the Snowflake, right? It's very similar. It's a different dial design. It's a beautiful watch, kind of vintage-esque case shape, but more contemporary in terms of size. Yeah, it's a good pick.
And they're, you know, Grand Seiko's still making a lot of really cool watches. So the best Grand Seiko might be coming out in a couple months. You know, they're inventing new seasons all the time. So
and finding new lakes and stuff in Japan and naming them after lakes.
They're building a new mountain right now to make a watch after it.
Right, exactly. My turn, right? Best handset.
Okay, I have a few answers for this, but and like a real answer as well. The handset that I first fell in love with, before I was even into watches, I would just kind of see them around the internet, was, you ever heard of the Soviet brand Raketa?
Yeah, sure.
They have a watch called the Copernicus, and it has, after the astronomer, and there's a sun hand and like this hollow moon hand, so you get an eclipse every hour.
Oh, okay.
A little gimmicky, but you know, when I was younger, I thought it was really cool. And I think it still is. It's like romantic and it's a little different. And it's not something you see every day.
True.
You know, Grand Seiko comes to mind just as far as like technicality, as far as handset goes.
Beautifully polished.
Anything with the spade hand, I love. You get some old Calatravas that have those as well. But enough beating around the bush. I think my real answer would be Omega Broad Arrow. You look at the original Speedmaster, it absolutely looks killer. I mean, you look at the whole like trilogy. Railmaster is amazing. Seamaster as well, of course, and even the Ranchero.
Yep.
It's just a good look. I think they take up like the right amount of real estate. I think they have like just enough character so that it always looks fresh, but also timeless as well, like very classic.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't really place it as like, oh, that's like a 1970s hand, or that's like an 1870s kind of Breguet hand, or whatever it is. It's like, it's very universal, has a lot of personality. The only downside is if I were to get a Speedmaster, it would be the 3594, I think. It's the Broad Arrow. It's like the reissue of the 57 line. So it had the name Replica for a long time. The only bad part is it's a flat hand, and so you have to get the angle right to look at it. It's not beveled.
Yeah.
It's not like a normal white Speedmaster hand, which stands in high contrast to the dial. It's like you really have to kind of get it at that light. And in phonographs as well, you'll see it kind of disappear and then reappear, which might be annoying.
So that's the thing. Like I like the Broad Arrow, but I don't like that one because what I like about the Broad Arrow is the even patina. So to me, a Broad Arrow is connected to a vintage watch, like a Ranchero or a vintage Seamaster, whatever, as you mentioned. And then they always have this beautiful cream patina. And that to me, the hand shape in my head is connected to this patina. And then the new one, there is no patina. So there's like this.
Luminova,
it's like there's this nice shape, but then something is missing for me.
That's fair. I will say the downside, and this is getting nitty gritty. Anytime you have a lot of real estate loom on a hand, like the Broad Arrow, for example, you see a lot of them where it's just fallen out over time.
Yeah.
It's partially fallen out.
Yeah, it's huge, exactly. So that. Yeah.
But if you find one that's intact, that has that kind of like pumpkin-ish loom, it's incredible.
But remember we talked about this, I think, in one of the previous episodes, and I said what I really don't like is when certain watches, they look like they're put together some like different eras and they're like using, I don't know, like a modern case shape and like maybe like an Explorer type dial with like cathedral hands, or when some...
The topic was, I believe, worst handset, and you said sword hands because it looks like...
Exactly, because it
like made up like retro.
Right, because oftentimes you see them on modern watches and they just don't look but anyways,
look authentic. Yeah.
Now we're going best handset. I'd say pencil handsets like chronographs.
Okay.
Because I love vintage chronographs, and I think when there's so much going on a dial, you have 2 subdials, 3 subdials. You have all these scales, printed. A pencil handset is just great because it does what it's supposed to do, so show the time, but it's nothing more, it's nothing less. It's very easy to read, especially because it's pointy, so you can if you had to, you could read the speed or the distance or whatever.
Yeah, it's very precise.
It's very precise. It's very elegant, very thin, and it looks good on basically any type of chronograph, from Galets to Angelus, from Benrus to whatever, Volge 72, Excelsior Park Movement. As much as I hate this word, it's a workhorse of a handset, basically. It's like a pair of khakis, right? It's nothing special, but everybody should have one.
It's the natural choice and for a reason.
Yeah.
My turn, yeah? Mm-hmm. This is a good question for you. Most underrated Omega.
Ooh, most underrated Omega.
You're an Omega fan. You've collected a lot of Speedmasters and non-Speedmasters, like Omegas from different eras.
Vintage or modern, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I think one that you think is kind of an unsung hero that deserves a little bit more attention. I have one in mind, but you're not going to get it.
A few actually come to mind. So probably one that I have and I've always enjoyed, and because of the case shape, it's not everybody's favorite, is the vintage Genève Dynamic, where you can change the strap and the bracelet. There's like a retainer ring on the back.
Yeah, I didn't know about that part.
Yeah, it's like a pebble shape.
I know the case shape. It's like an oblong,
kind of like
wider
an oval.
than it is tall, I think.
Right, and then you have this funny shaped leather strap that basically it looks like the watch sits on top of the leather strap, but there's a hole in the middle of the strap. So there's a retainer ring. You unscrew the ring, and then you push the watch through the hole, and then you can screw it back. And then you can also do that with the bracelet. So it's basically like a steel bracelet, like a steel hole in the middle. You put the watch through, you screw it from the bottom.
Okay.
So you can switch between straps and bracelets.
Is that the main reason why you like it?
So I think it's very versatile. Of course, the dial is super original. It's usually like blue or white or it's like a two-tone dial. Mm-hmm. But mine is just pure like black or dark gray. This is like a 400 to 700 euro watch.
Yeah, very affordable.
Very affordable. It's a monoblock case.
Because it's underrated.
Because it's underrated. So what the cool thing is with how you have to like take the movement out, it's also a pain. You actually have to take the crown and rip it out of the case. Then you have to blow air into the case, and that pops the crystal. And then the movement, and then the dial with the movement comes out.
Okay.
That's how you take. The problem is, oftentimes, there's also other tools to remove the crystal. Oftentimes, when they do it, there's a little rim on the crystal that breaks. And it's very hard to replace it. So watchmakers usually don't like to touch it.
Yeah.
So it's a bit tricky nowadays. But back in the day, it was awesome.
That's so specific to that watch too, I feel like.
Yeah. So it's like one block of steel with like the movement, the dial, hands, and then plastic crystal on top. Sealed with a crown, and that's it. And then you can just like pick any strap or any bracelet.
Is that a 70s Omega?
Yes, it's early 70s, I would say.
It definitely looks very 70s. I liked a lot of the other 70s Omegas, like TV, TV shaped kind of watch, television shaped kind of cases. But that one, it's not a hit for me. So I'd be on the other side of the underrated kind of thing, where it's like it doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's also not getting a lot of attention from me. It's
very 70s. And then my other choice would have been the 1040 movement models, where there's a bunch of models. It's like this automatic chronograph caliber, and there's really so many models like the Flat Jedi and the Jedi and all those guys. Because they at price now, they are where they used to be like 5, 6, 7 years ago. When people ask crazy money, but I'm not sure they're getting it. But let's stick with the Genève Dynamic. I think it's an unsung hero of the early to mid 70s Omega designs.
For my underrated Omega, I'm going to go a little bit more as like a category. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go, there are integrated bracelet Omega Genèves. They have a diver, which is really cool. It's also very cheap. I think around 1,000 to 1,300 or something like that. You have that like flat plateau of a case with super sharp angles, more of like a tonneau kind of case shape. Integrated bracelet. You can find them for nothing online. They're usually to be in pretty good condition, and the edges on the case are like you could cut yourself. So I would say, if someone's looking for a cheaper watch from a very respectable brand with a style and aesthetic that has proven itself over the decades.
Yeah.
You know, with that 70s integrated bracelet kind of style that we're seeing pop up again with the overwhelming popularity of the PRX, for example. I think that's a really good alternative for the same price. Plus, it's vintage as well.
It's funny, both you and I went for time-only watches.
Yeah, I mean, Omega gets a lot of credit for. What do you say? The Speedmaster is underrated.
Yeah. Well, no. But then if you think of certain models, I mean, I'm sure there are like certain Speedmaster references that are underrated. But yeah, that's the.
But there's more to Omega than the Speedmaster.
Absolutely. People forget that.
You know, we make lists all the time, like best vintage watches, best place to start if you're getting into vintage, and Omega's always at the top of my list.
Absolutely. No, I can't agree more. No, it's a good pick, but I like mine better. Thomas.
What's it say?
Best MoonSwatch version.
Why? Why is that such a loaded question?
None.
Do you want to take this first? you got a hot start.
I like them, but it's like just like they're all the same. It's a different color.
Yeah.
So it's
that's
like
the point of the question.
Basically, what color do you like? Pink or blue?
This
or
is not
red?
a movement-based question, okay?
I mean, okay, the Mars has the Alaska Project hands, for example. There's a teeny tiny bit of a difference there. Color. So we're thinking about colors.
Yeah. Let's think about colors.
So I had the Mars. I had the red one.
So you don't hate it if you've owned one.
No, I don't hate it. I'm just like, it's just a color thing. Zlatan Ibrahimovic had the same one. For those of you who follow soccer, well, you did when he was in the Galaxy. I'm not really the biggest fan of I don't know the names, and I don't want to think about them now, the black ones and gray ones, because they just look like a Speedmaster, but they're not like a quirky Speedmaster. But then I'm also not the biggest fan of like yellow and pink and all that stuff, because it's just not me. And I absolutely don't care about the blue, how that's super rare and it's €3,000 watch because people cannot get it.
Agreed.
I would say I go with the Mars, the red one.
That's what I thought you'd pick.
Yeah. So the earth and stuff, the colors, I don't think they're the nice shade of green and stuff and burgundy. You know, if I have to pick a color, I would say it's probably Mars. Saturn is also nice with this beige-ish color with the Saturn on the dial, but I'd probably go with the Mars.
Thank you for suffering through that to give me an answer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go enthusiastically with the Jupiter one, which is the like tan and orange, kind of like, you know, desert colorway. That's a combination that we've seen other brands do pretty well. IWC has like a
whole line,
a desert version of the Mojave.
Yeah.
I think Hodinkee did a collaboration with Hermes for their HO8 that was like this same kind of sand plus orange colorway. And so I think it's cool. I think
Renaissance has one.
I think it's cool as far as like you have like a true neutral plus like definitely a pop of color. To use an overused term, you can put it on like a black strap, which I think it comes with, or an orange strap if you really want to pull that color out. I think it's versatile. It's like fun, just fun enough. So yeah, that would be my pick.
So do you see a lot of MoonSwatches in the wild?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah? Which one? Just everything, or you have a specific
I think
color?
I think a lot of it comes down to what people could get, because I think even now you can't just like walk in and there's no buffet example. They're like, hey, we have this one or these three. Yeah. Take your pick, maybe.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, people trade for them after the fact. Never seen a yellow one. I think that's the least popular.
Yeah, I've seen I've seen light blue ones. I've seen a blue one actually on my way here on the flight. There was a guy wearing one. I see some Mars ones, some Alaska, so the red ones. I've not seen any of the swatch paints yet, not yet.
Not in person, no.
No, yeah.
But you will. They're out there.
So after this, we can go and check it out in the swatch store.
Yeah, we got plenty in Manhattan.
There you go.
A question for you. Best Rolex dial. So you have vintage stuff here, and then you also, they've been getting a little crazy recently. I don't know if you've seen. Celebration dial, puzzle dial, palm dial.
So I don't think they're the best, but I definitely like that. I like those dials. And the reason I like them is because Rolex, who's known to change next to nothing when it comes to new watches
Yes.
or like very, very small
And
changes.
it's typically a pretty serious company, I would say,
Yes.
in terms of design.
Exactly. So I like the palm trees or the palm leaves and all that stuff. I like them. They're not my favorite dials or the best dials, but I like them. So to me, probably a late 60s 5513 sub,
Yeah.
because it's not a chronometer certified watch. So there's less text on the dial. Even Chris
You're not like a
agrees.
4-line kind of person?
Yeah, so I do like it, but I think it's like super simple. If you look at like a 60s, I'm sorry, not dress watch, like tool watch, a dive watch, I think it's pretty cool. It has the logo, it has the name, it has the 2-line, no silver ring around the indexes. It's just like a matte black dial with the painted lume on it.
Yep, exactly.
So, and especially if you can find like a super dome, it really pops. That's my favorite.
Okay, so you're a less is more kind of guy.
Kinda, yeah.
Classic Rolex.
Late 60s or mid to late 60s, maybe early 70s, whatever. 5513, 2-line, simple, elegant. You can take that dial, like, take it out, take a picture, just zoom in, print the picture and put it on the wall. It's like an art piece.
And there's a reason why it's been imitated as much as it has, I think. It's, good design lasts. And I think, that's a strong example.
Evergreen. Yeah.
You're going like classic, timeless kind of stuff. I'm going to go maybe a little bit more flash in the pan, or at least what I maybe could be a classic in the future, or looking back maybe. I'm going to go palm dial. I love how crazy Rolex is getting. It feels like they have nothing to prove, so they're just kind of having fun with it, finally. There's a lot of like technology, like we talked about it in a recent video where there's like certain lasers that they use to get multiple shades of palm leaves in there. And as you move it around, whether it's the two-tone, whether it's the green dial, you get a lot of different variation of the palm leaves that comes out. It's already pretty well appreciated if you look at retail versus market price. But I think even as time goes on, it's such a nice time capsule of Rolex right now where they're like having fun with this kind of stuff. Like 30 years from now, they're going to be even more fun, even more special, I would say, unless they get super crazy in the future. But I think it's just, I'm not a big puzzle dial fan, for example. The Celebration doesn't really do it for me, but the palm is like just enough.
And that was the first one, wasn't it? That was the first dial 2021?
Yes, 2021, I believe. Yeah.
When it was just like totally different.
Yeah, that was like the first surprise, the first trick that they had up their sleeves. Otherwise, if we're going vintage, I would go, for a classic example, I would go like super early mill dials, for example, with the honeycomb. And that like steel lightning bolt hand over top really works. They age really well. I think any kind of like matte Rolex style ages really well.
Absolutely.
With the lume, as well, puffs up, gets a nice color. But I would go palm dial overall.
Last. Is it last?
I think so, yeah.
Best watch for a job interview, Thomas.
Okay. And just for, there's a million kind of jobs in the world. I would say let's do like a 9 to 5 office job kind of thing.
So not like a deli, but also not a truck driver, but also not a president.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Office
just if you're getting
level.
like a more hands-on job, like something like a tool watch, for example, would be great, or just like a G-Shock or whatever. Let's say you're like fresh out of business school or something like that, and you're getting like your first big boy job, or however you want to call it. I would go probably a Datejust, which is not my first choice for anything, I would say. Great watch, just not for me. But as far as like to wear to a job interview, I'll talk you through my logic a little bit. I remember reading some advice earlier in my career when I was thinking through these same questions about like what to wear to a job interview. And I remember reading a blue suit is good because it's professional, but it's also neutral enough to where you let the other person kind of fill in their own ideas about you, about how you can fit into the company, for example. And I feel like a Datejust is standard enough, respectable, of course.
Like a 36 Datejust we're talking.
Yeah, 36 Datejust, vintage or modern. I think. You could do it on a bracelet or a strap, but it's classic, it's dependable, it's what you want to project as a future employee, but it's not huge. It's like you're not walking in with a Panerai or like a gold Rolex or something. It's just, you're just like a good guy.
So don't you think that it's maybe a bit too expensive for a first job, kind of? I mean, the question didn't specify if it's a first job. It's a job interview. It can be your 15th job. I'm just thinking like if you straight out of college, you probably haven't made any money yet, so the watch came from your family, not so you haven't worked for it. But then again, if it's like if you're in your mid-30s, then it's a different story.
But it's like, hey, maybe you save some money. I mean, in that vein, maybe I would go. I don't want to steal an answer potentially, but maybe like a vintage Omega Seamaster would be a good one.
And this is exactly my answer because that's what
segue to.
That's exactly what I chose. It wasn't a Seamaster, but it was a vintage Omega that I chose for my job interview back in the day, and it was the Ford Reference 2505. So it's a 38 millimeter bigger case, kind of contemporary looking watch, but it's a vintage watch from the 50s. It was just perfect because it was kind of like I wasn't wearing a suit. I was like wearing like pair of slacks, like a shirt and a like a V-neck or something, a sweater, with the watch, and it was like kind of casual, kind of business. It looks nice, so people that don't know watches think, oh, that's a nice watch. Yeah. But people that know watches, they're like, okay, it's cool. He's wearing something vintage. That's kind of interesting. If you're doing an interview for a watch company or watch-related company, that's another story. Of course, everybody will know what you're wearing and they will pay attention to that.
That's the first question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would if I had an interview with a watch company, like a watch brand, I would go without a watch.
No.
Just to mess with them without a watch.
No.
Yeah, I would do it. Listen, get an interview with Rolex. You can wear a Rolex, but everybody would do that, right? But what if you wear
it's like wearing the band tee to the concert.
Yeah, but what if you wear like nothing? Like, why are you not wearing a watch? See,
that question's not coming from a good place in my mind.
I don't know. It could. It depends on the guy who's interviewing you. If it's a pretentious snob, you're gonna be like, oh, he's not wearing a watch. Bye.
See, when I was interviewing for the watch industry, I did not have a lot of watches at the time. I was interested in them and could talk about them, could write about them, which I got the job as writing about them, but I wore this like funky little swatch that I have, as a conversation started, let's say. And then I think I had a Belova Accutron at the time, and I wore that, both like super affordable kind of pieces, but a little more off the beaten path and something that I could talk about, tell a story about, and that said something about me.
That's also a great way,
which I think could be a good strategy for any other non-watch job as well, if you really want to. Because 95% chance they're not going to notice, or if they do, maybe it is like a celebration dial or something like that. Or something
we were talking about a best watch for an interview, and then we just probably talked about 15 different scenarios, like first watch, a first job, first interview, fifth interview, watch industry interview, non-watch industry interview. So I guess...
what it comes down to is whatever makes you feel confident.
You heard the man. There you go.
Balazs Ferenczi, Thomas Hendricks. This has been Plus or Minus, the Horological Debate Show about the best and worst of the watch world. We'll see you soon.